Hey everybody, it's Alan, co-VP of Content at AMA Boston. I hope you're all doing well, and the new year is giving you everything that you hoped for so far, and continues to give you good things for the rest of the year. I am back with a new episode, and I'm here to introduce Teo and Blake. Before we get into things, a few orders of business. This episode was recorded back in October, and my personal apologies to Teo and Blake just for taking so long to get it through. We recorded it basically right before the holidays started to escalate, and now it's out. It's out. I'm so excited for people to listen to it. It is sincerely one of my favorite episodes. I know I say that every single time, and you're getting sick of it, but this is really fun. It was my first time interviewing two people at once, and getting to kind of newlywed game them and have them answer questions about each other was delightful and really silly. I think that the work that they're doing at Idea Peddler is really exciting. If you haven't checked out like Blake's Instagram, for example, the work he's doing with his video stuff and drones is seriously impressive. I will link that in the show notes. And yeah, this is just a very lighthearted, fun discussion about building a business from scratch, how it feels to get bought out by a bigger company, and it comes from two really charming and genuine dudes, very down to earth. So I want to thank them again. I want to thank President-elect Emily Kakuzo for helping us meet and getting us all together. I know she's also been looking forward to this episode for quite a while, and yeah, enjoy it. We'll be back in 2 months. I already have my next guest lined up. We have a lot of cool ideas for the AMA Boston content team. And if you stick around to the end of the episode, I'll be laying out what we have planned for in-person events if you're in the Boston area and want to meet me or other AMA Boston people and do some professional mingling or what have you. So with that being said, please enjoy my conversation with Teo and Blake. Hello and welcome to Talking Marketing, an AMA Boston podcast where I chat with marketing professionals across their various industries and try to get to the core of what makes their work impactful. I'm Alan Ibrahim, your host and director of content for the American Marketing Association's Boston chapter. And today, I am very excited to welcome my guests, Teo Mefalopulos, the COO at Idea Peddler, and Blake Takushi, creative director at Idea Peddler. Both of them are members of Forbes' 30 Under 30 in Austin, and that's enough of an intro because welcome to the show, guys.
Well,
Thank
thanks.
you. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. It's a joy that our, President-elect Emily Kakuzo was able to put us together here. I've been doing a lot of research and hearing a lot about you guys on social media, and so this was a big get for us, and I'm really happy that you guys were able to take the time out of your schedules. So jumping right into the meat and potatoes here, how did Teo and Blake meet? What's the origin story that you guys like to tell people?
Yeah, I can jump in. The background, we met through a mutual friend. I was 25 at the time. Blake was, I believe, a sophomore in college. Mutual friend told me about this creative that did video production, who was extremely talented, which ended up being Blake. And so Blake reached out to me via Instagram. And we kind of had some early conversations, just all things creative. At the time, I was a lot more involved on the video production side of the business. And then kind of the stars align, which I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. But, there was an opportunity there that I saw, and Blake's timing was perfect with wanting to kind of maybe take a pause on college. And so we decided to jump into this venture together.
The all connecting Instagram DM, right? Yeah, no, it was really a perfect timing situation. Tail nailed it. It was my sophomore year at UT. I was dabbling in freelance videography, and Teo already had the foundations of our first creative agency, Namaro, set up. The office downtown, not nearly as furnished or finished as it would be 4 or so years later, but perfect timing. I think things get lucky, right time, right place type situation.
Incredible. And it goes to show that not only the power of social media, but the power of Instagram DMs, like you said, weirdly prevalent in the stories of how the best businesses seem to start. I don't know what it is about the Instagram DM. Something more personal about it, maybe. I don't know the last time I heard of a business that started on a Twitter DM, for example, but truly incredible.
Instagram is the LinkedIn for creatives,
That's so true, and that's my pull quote, if you don't mind. But no, it's very true. And I want to ask, speaking of creative stuff, can you tell folks basically what is your business and what are you guys doing exactly? Like, what's the sort of elevator pitch for what you guys do?
Yeah, so Idea Peddler is a full service advertisement agency based out of Austin, Texas, specifically focusing on travel tourism clients, a lot of different destinations, and also hospitality. So a lot of different departments of health and all sorts of private and public companies in those domains. And we try to bundle that all up in saying that we really work with clients who are conscientious. It doesn't mean they're NGO or nonprofits, but that means that they help move the needle forward in their industry. So they're doing it for something bigger than themselves.
I think that's going to come up a lot. Yeah, doing something bigger than yourselves in this conversation. Worth noting, actually, part of that origin story. You did mention it, but I want to just dig a teensy bit more into it. So Teo, if I got this right from Emily's confirmation, you're the one who convinced Blake to drop out of college. Is that accurate?
Something like that. I don't think he needed much convincing. He was going down that path on his own, and but I think to Blake's point, I had a framework for a business. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to grow it, and Blake got a sense of that and was really, I mean, instrumental though in the growth. You know, I couldn't have done it without Blake. So, if anything, I gave him a little nudge.
Would agree with that statement. The framework of our first company was built, and Teo, as that lead visionary of Namaro, that first creative agency, was definitely a primary driver in the decision. I already had the kind of self awareness that maybe college wasn't for me, and I wanted to kind of get out there and pursue something bigger. And then, when I met Teo and kind of understood his vision holistically, it was a perfect puzzle piece fit type situation. And I think we both played off of each other's strengths very, very well, and we could both focus on the kind of core skill sets that we wanted to chase after.
What were you studying actually in college, Blake, if I can ask?
I went to UT as a mechanical engineer, which lasted promptly one semester. When I
Oh
realized
man.
I'm definitely not an engineer. I was able to switch into the advertising school, which I was super fond of. I really loved the coursework there, but wanted to move a little bit faster. One of the favorite stories to tell about this era was I was a creative advertising class, like an intro to ad creativity. And we had a video project assigned. I was definitely the first pick for everybody's team. They wanted me to be on the commercial team. And, we had a list of 5 or 6 clients to choose from. One of those was Lyft. And simultaneously, us at Namaro were working on a video campaign with Lyft. And I was like, if this isn't a sign from God, I don't know what is. And I wrapped up that last semester, and the rest is history.
That is one of the hardest pivots I've ever heard of on this podcast. And that's coming from somebody who went from dentistry to marketing. So like I feel you there. And I definitely feel what you were saying earlier about the sort of pull of like when the puzzle piece fits, when the Teo matches the Blake, so to speak, it you just kind of can do it, especially when you're young and you feel like comfortable in pivoting. Um, and that's just so cool. Like mechanical engineering. What a weird. Do you ever? This is my last question on this. I promise. Do you ever like feel like you're incorporating any of those skills or ideas that you had thought about in that first semester in your current work?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's a love for math and science that drove me to mechanical engineering originally. And editing at a very video editing at a very technical sense does get quite mathematical and quite strategic. And then the other very specific use case would be the building of FPV drones. So I do a lot of technical work on building and manufacturing drones myself, and that kind of skill set
Wow.
definitely translates well there. But I think using both sides of the brain as a creative is a key part of developing a style that is deeper than making something that just looks pretty. As an advertisement agency, we make content that's functional and efficient. We're thinking a lot about strategy, and the numbers that go behind our campaigns as well. So yeah, no, I pull from both sides. I always like to say 49% artist, 51% business entrepreneur
Wow.
mind.
That's impressive. And also because Teo, I know in our prep call you had mentioned that you were a little bit more creative minded. So in my mind, it's almost like you brought the analytics with Blake and the creatives with Teo. Both of you obviously do both, but it's this sort of like beautiful hybrid of two people's big skill sets.
Yeah, we've flip-flopped a little bit back and forth, and I think that's why the dynamic between Blake and I has worked so well, because we're both practitioners in the creative field, but at the same time, I think we can step away and realize and talk a little more analytically about, what has to happen on whether it's the operation or the business side, which is really hard to do. So we've been lucky and fortunate enough to have that.
So moving beyond the origin, we've got Namaro. We've got this first company that you guys started together, and then tell me about how Idea Peddler happened, how that merge, how that absorption happened.
Yeah, so to dive into that a little bit, Namaro was roughly 4 years old at that point. So we had really kind of grown, strangely enough, during the pandemic. And with that, our exposure and kind of foothold in Austin had grown with it. And so we were starting to get recognized a little bit more from different agencies and starting to get subcontracted out, a lot on the video production side, which is the team that Blake was running. And so one of the companies was Idea Peddler. They'd asked us specifically to go out to California to shoot with one of their travel tourism destinations. So they had gone, they filmed, they came back, and there was generally this sense amongst both teams, both at Namaro and at Idea Peddler, that something magical had happened out there. We'd been running a lot of different shoots. We worked with clients of all sizes, and it never really felt that way. And so Blake and his team were really satisfied. The client was really understanding and really happy. And so it's hard to describe in words, but lightning in a bottle seems to be what we always point to. And from there, the CEO of Idea Peddler, Samin, reached out to me to schedule a meeting, and just kind of discuss. But in hindsight, I didn't know what I was walking into, and never did I think it was for any sort of conversation about anything more than maybe some new business opportunities.
Sure.
Fast forward from that, the meeting, went great. I think it was the first time that Samin and I had actually met. So the rest of our team had mingled a lot and met and worked on a couple projects, but we had never, as CEOs, never had met. And I remember walking away, and I called Blake right after the meeting, and I was like, Blake, these words were never said, and I don't know why, but I have a sense that she's interested in acquiring us. And it was really funny because Blake correctly so was like, well, what gave you that,
Yeah.
kind of sixth sense? I was like, I don't know. I don't even remember what I said, Blake, but I was so confident, like something is rumbling here and something is happening. And then from there, it was a month later that she set a dinner to talk through some things, but she was really ambiguous in all of it. And so at that point, I sat down with Blake and I was like, we need to be ready for it in case it comes up. And lo and behold, at the dinner, it was the first time that she formally asked if we would entertain an acquisition and see what that path would look like. And I was obviously very excited, but I tried to keep my cool in the moment and said, I need to talk with my business partners and get back to you on if this is something we want to do. And we entertained it. And so then it was 5 months of working through that.
Yeah, I can't fathom being, I think we're fairly similar in age, and just like, you start this business, you're pretty proud of the work you do. You've gotten some good clients, and then like you said, you get that sort of sixth sense. And then for somebody to start making serious offers, and you're like, do you start to get like almost like imposter syndrome? You're like, this can't be really, like, they're talking about us, like the work that we do.
Yeah, that was,
That's
for me, it's always there, Blake.
No, I was going to say the exact same thing. Is imposter syndrome is just synonymous with entrepreneurship. It's
Yeah.
just part of the ride, and it's so hard to kind of peek your head up after head down grinding for so long and look at how far you've come. But I think Teo and I have done a good job of that as well, of just a constant reminder of, quarterly, every 6 months, every year, just reminding ourselves of like we're making significant progress, and then the validity behind obviously the acquisition offer was a step further than we ever took. And now at Idea Peddler, that progress continues to grow. I think that was the most intriguing part of the offer was the kind of learning, and the now full service type of offerings that we have at the agency that we're just nonstop learning, truly.
Of course, yeah. Like, I'm just curious. Like, when you get that first text and Teo's like, "Hey, I think something's cooking," what's going through your mind? Are you like, "This is a bunch of nonsense. He's getting bigger than his britches," or were you like ready to be there as well?
No, I mean, Teo's a fantastic leader because his sixth sense is 99.9% correct most of the time. And I was actually on set with our video production team in Mexico when the first conversation happened. And I kind of stepped away from the team
You're
and I had
like,
to like lock myself in a different room for several minutes to like contain the smile on my face. And I couldn't even do that because as soon as I walked out, some of the team were like, "What news did you get?" Because they knew Teo was calling, and I was like, "You guys will know soon enough." And that was fun news to break when we were actually able to unveil the deal in the end. And I was like, "Elliot, you remember that conversation in Mexico?" And he was like, "You guys knew 6 months ago." That's how long the deal takes.
yeah. Sometimes it's just a lot of paperwork, right? You're like, I know it's happening, but I don't know when. Like
That's an
that.
understatement that I don't know if Teo wants to dive into.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the simplest sense for anyone that's curious, these deals are so complex and they can fall apart at the 11th hour, really. It can
Of
be one
course.
wrong thing that's said or one miss or disagreement on a percent or a dollar, whatever it is. And so it was my first time really going through this whole process. And I'm incredibly thankful for our attorneys and even our accountants who really helped us through all of this, but such a challenge and really, really difficult, especially because I don't love reading. What's our deal page? I think it's 376 pages.
Oof.
Um,
Rough.
so it's a lot.
It's a lot of reading, lots of waiting, like you said. But you got there, which is what's important. And so now you guys have been you were acquired, and one of the things I'm curious about is like core elements of the work that you both do right now. So, uh, Teo, you mentioned on our prep call something I love to hear, which is that advertising isn't necessarily the thing. It's more like what you like to do and what matters to you. Can you guys both speak a little bit to like what matters to you in the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is if you're someone like Blake who has the luck of being able to love what you do every day, that's incredible, right? But
Of course.
I think it's okay to tell people that there's a series of skill sets that transcend just one's individual passion and love. You don't always have to love what you're doing. It's okay. It's okay to just work that 9 to 5 and then find love elsewhere. And so for me, the advertisement industry, I think it's incredible and there's so much value to learn. But on our prep call, I'm pretty open with everyone. It's not my end all be all, right? And the big slogan I always say is just wanting to leave the world better than how I came into it. So if it's done through the advertisement lens, then amazing. We did a lot of the COVID rollout for the state of New Mexico in
Right.
terms of awareness and where you could get vaccinated. And so that's an element that made me feel really great about following through on that. So again, it's okay to not always be in love with what you're doing and rather use it as a medium for whatever's next. But Blake is, interestingly enough, I think on the other end where he's truly, truly in love with his craft and a real artist.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always been just the kid with the camera, and now I get to do that full time for a living, which is absolutely a blessing. But I think similarly to Teo, there's elements of any job that are, less glamorous than other sides of it. But fortunately, being able to just be a creative problem solver full time is really fulfilling, and always kind of pushing our work to the next level, pushing my team to the next level, bettering our work from an artistic perspective. Even though art being a subjective field, objectively you can really define progress over time, and compare campaigns that we were putting out 2 years ago to last year to now. The growth is undeniable. And then also, seeing the kind of growth on the strategic lens as well. As we work on larger campaigns, you don't just get more dollars and then go shoot a bigger video. You have to do a lot more thinking, and that thinking has to be justified amplified on a higher level as well. So really stepping into, a creative director role on this kind of new foundation, this new level, has been, fulfilling as well. Being able to step into a room with the CVP, with the tourism board of 25 reps, and really kind of sell them on what their campaign will look like for the next 3 to 4 years is, something that we weren't working on for sure on the early stages of Namaro. And I think I have a love for that process holistically. Ultimately, it manifests as video, and it manifests as myself directing or holding the camera, or eventually editing it on the computer. But each of those kind of little moving parts, from all the people in our crew to all the clients in the room, seeing that kind of picture get painted with each of those individual paintbrushes is what I love about the process.
I love the way you talk about this stuff, especially like with, you always have to shout out your team and the people, that bring this together, because, Rome wasn't built in a day. Rome wasn't built by two people. It's a group of people. It's a group effort, which I think is really important, because a lot of our audience is like newer marketers, younger people. So I'm always trying to remind them that, yeah, it's not just you and your best friend make a company together and then it just kind of works out for you guys. Like it's a collaborative effort for sure.
I would actually say, statistically speaking, it's probably not in your favor.
Correct. Yeah, so that brings me to a big point. I think, speaking of like lessons for the next generation of people who may want to be the next Teo and Blake, I haven't asked you, Teo, too much about like what brought you, like personality wise, characteristically, how you got to where you are, because have you always been a business minded person? Have you always been a artist? Like what was the thing that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I've asked and pondered that question all too often. I think I stumbled into entrepreneurship, whether you believe in, I don't know, luck, or it was predetermined, but none of my family is or has any entrepreneurship background, but it was something that certainly just captivated me from the get-go. In terms of, to anyone, I think at any point, there's a couple key things that I always talk about in a career that I think I've found tremendous value from. But first is just a level of resilience. You're going to go through so many of these challenges. It's so hard. There's so many reasons to stop and quit. But if you have that self-drive, it really trumps any other card, because you can push through it. Second, which I think is a critical one, and this is a big one for me that Blake and I always discuss about, but communication, talking, and not just communicating well with your peers or mentors or anyone you're pitching to, but also listening. I think oftentimes listening gets forgotten on the communication end. Really being able to sit back and listen to what people are asking and make them feel validated, because you're dealing with a human on the other end. And then the last one I'll say is I'll say be multidisciplinary. In a world where things are changing as rapidly as they are, with the introduction of AI and all the new software rollouts that are coming out, the learning how to learn, I think, is really the most valuable thing you can have. So I don't know, I'm sure Blake has his own, but for me, those are kind of the key three that I've really feel like I built my foundation on.
No, I agree. I agree tremendously with learning how to learn, and the kind of jack of all trades aspect, especially in a creative field, especially in a marketing field. We all wear so many hats in this industry. And I think if you can wear those hats and wear them confidently, you're an asset to almost any company. The generic kind of feedback that I give to my mentees, or anyone looking for advice, is all about who you surround yourself with. It's about finding partners that elevate you, that push you to your limits, but also fill in the holes that you have, and hopefully you fill in theirs likewise, in the sense of, Teo and I truly balance each other out. We think in different ways, because if we're thinking in the same way, that's kind of a waste of energy. And I think that communication aspect of being able to understand those differences and work through problems, and solve them. It's one thing to be able to talk through them, but ultimately come to solutions that, as those solutions have compounded, we have somehow stumbled into a successful company. And I think that's a big part of it is, on the daily, there's so many problems to solve. And that's not even on your general client work, to-do lists. Those are the responsibilities of being a business owner, and to be able to juggle all of those things simultaneously, you have to have a partner, a team, people that you can trust, people that you can lean on.
Again, that team stuff is so important, and I think surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded can really transform how you think about your work. Because I know a lot of, Blake, like similar to you, like video people who just say, well, pick up a camera and start shooting stuff, and that'll definitely develop you some skills. But when it comes to turning that into a business, turning that into something truly successful and larger scale, it's about working with other people. I think, not to toot our own horn much, but like the first time I got on a board meeting with AMA Boston and I realized I wasn't the only like person in my circle with marketing brainworms, I was like, wow, this is actually like, I'm not that weird. I feel very validated and appreciated for once. Uh, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, there's something just stabilizing also about being surrounded with your people, in the sense of, especially as entrepreneurs, it's, you can often go down that rabbit hole of like, is there anyone else like us? Is like, does anyone else like understand these struggles? And then through,
Mhm.
really, really fantastic mentors, through, other peers in our network who own their own companies, we've developed some of the strongest connections that we have with other people of like, hey, from an outside perspective, like, what do you think about this predicament that we're in? Or, from a third party who, isn't maybe even in the advertising world, asking them creative questions, and you can really draw the parallels between other industries, as entrepreneurs.
To that point, quickly, are there any businesses or entrepreneurs or people in general that you feel comfortable shouting out that really helped you get to where you are today? This is your space for that, to either of you.
Yeah, I've got a couple. If I may have to send her this podcast so she can give it a listen. But here in town, Amber Allen, who runs Double A Labs, has just been instrumental in really helping open up my mind in terms of how to sharpen my skills and run a team, and really how to grow tomorrow when we were focusing that. Along with another individual called Chris Taylor, who used to run a software automotive company, and he had sold maybe a year before we did, 6 months before, and I just happened to stumble into him and meet him. And so during the whole selling process, he sat me down just as a friend and truly helped understand what is the framework, what sort of levers should I be pulling. And I gave him just I opened up and told him candidly everything about the deal structure, because I was a little overwhelmed and unaware as to what the best steps are. So those two people here in town have been incredible, but there are many, many more that have helped build all that Blake and I have done. So
Yeah, I can second a couple. I'll give a shout out to Mike Spadier, who was so instrumental in like the foundational phases of Namara, really taking us from maybe not even 0 to 1, but 0 to 0.5, in the
Mhm.
earliest stages of our company. Another agency owner, a creative mind, a background in all things digital marketing. Kind of, I think saw the foundational talent that we may have had, and helped us really refine that into, um, I think, what we could call a company for the first time, in those really early days. And then secondly, our VP of strategy at Idea Peddler, Ed Cohen, who, not 0 to 1, but maybe 1 to 2, for myself, really refining my creative direction, refining people skills, and thinking about advertising and marketing campaigns on that highest level, from somebody who has experience doing it at the highest level, has been another fantastic mentor of mine.
I love that, because like Teo, it still sticks in my mind, this leaving the world better than you came into it. And part of that is also taking what you learned from others and then
mhm.
delivering it to the world and then delivering it to the next generation, whoever they are, however they learn from your work. So that's why I always like to ask people, hey, like who got you here, passing the baton, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things I see, which I mean, I guess it's scary, but for me here in the next year or two, I'll be calling them the next generation, no longer as relevant.
Oh boy.
But is there's oftentimes this fear to reach out to people in the industry, right? That are maybe any sort of C-suite level people, or anyone that you look up to and inspires you, that is usually, a little bit older. And the interesting part that's never spoken about is truly how important and how fulfilling it is for us to give back in any way possible. And if one of that is, via communication or via any questions or talking, we love to do it. Right. And so you'll always find Blake and I taking time out of our week to sit down and grab coffee with UT students that reach out. And if anything, for me personally, I'm always looking to reward someone that reaches out in a creative way, whether that be through a great message or a curiosity or just a really specific action item. So I always encourage everyone, reach out. The worst you're going to get is a no response, or they can't find the time to do it, but it doesn't hurt.
Love that. Gotta drill that into myself as well. And it's like when your network is big, you also have to use it, right? You can put yourself in the room where it happens, but then you have to speak up. You have to ask people for help or ask people for advice. And a lot of them want to help, right? Like a lot of C-suite people, if they have the time, they're not going to be like, ugh, another one. It's like, yeah, they had help and they need it from you.
Absolutely.
So to line things up a bit as we're wrapping here, I have two quick lighter questions for you guys. The first one, and I didn't put this on the questions doc because I wanted you guys to be able to come up with it off the cuff, is a question that I cribbed from the Morning Brew newsletter. First up for Blake, what is something that people wouldn't guess about you from your LinkedIn profile?
Oh, wow. This feels like a speed dating event now.
It's gonna keep feeling like that, brother. I got it planned.
I
What do you
love
guys
it.
do
I
for
think,
fun? What is life besides business for the two of you?
I think that I've hung up my athletic background now that I'm kind of owning the creative role. But I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm an avid golfer. I'm an outdoorsman, hunter, fisher.
Wow.
And I don't think that's something that you would find on my LinkedIn or my Instagram. It's a lot of camera gear and drones, and business minded type insight.
Mm-hmm.
But currently, as we're here in October, my evening will consist of watching the Astros game from Houston. I'm a huge Astros fan. I don't know if that's going to
Wow.
turn off any watchers on the podcast. Being on the East Coast, that may be a slight red flag. But I wear it on, I wear that on my sleeve.
And Teo, go ahead.
I have a little bit more time than Blake. I've had 30 seconds while he's talking to think it through. I would probably say truly how much I enjoy all things in the culinary world. I think
Ooh.
in a different path in life, I probably would have stepped into some sort of I don't know if it's a restaurant, opening up a restaurant or a food truck or going to culinary school. But you'll always find me cooking, trying new recipes, botching something, and then eventually getting it right. But it's a form of love for me, and I really enjoy cooking for friends and family.
It's one of those hobbies that you don't think you like until you see it like kind of romanticized a little, and then you're like, oh my god, I want to like I read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, or I watched The Bear, that Hulu series recently, and I suddenly was like, I can start a business. I'll start a restaurant. It's like, no, you probably can't, but
I
it sounds awesome.
I actually want to take a second and tie back the bear to all things business. And
Please.
I think this is a brilliant moment in time. But for anyone that's watched the bear, when I talk to people about it's my favorite show I've ever seen, and people are really
It's
kind of taken
incredible.
by that. And I think it's because it relates so much to my kind of ethos of I always want to invest in people and grow with them and grow as a team rather than kind of recycle or repeat or try to always find someone that's better than the current individual that we have. And so for us specifically, I think it's exactly what led to Namaro being as successful as it was, is that we put together a team of outcasts that really didn't have the background to compete with bigger agencies, but we weren't competing with them. We were doing it totally different and trying to carve our own path, and we all grew so much in those 4 years. So for what it's worth, if you haven't seen The Bear, I'll take a look at it, because the first two seasons are quite remarkable.
Incredible show, and thank you for saying that because I agree. And weird. I know a lot of creative types that like find shows about cooking or the restaurant industry really either relatable or inspiring because it's the same
Mm,
level of like, yeah, like you said, investing in people and just developing a hard skill set and doing it over and over again.
no.
Um, Blake, I wanted to have something more profound to say about sports and hunting and whatnot, but the only thing I know about the Astros is the cheating scandal, unfortunately. So
It's
nothing but
fair. It's
respect.
fair.
But nothing but respect for your guys. That's totally. A lot of my best friends are Mets fans, so there's like a lot of beef, and it's It's a whole thing.
That's
But
unfortunate for them.
cannot wait for them to listen to this episode. And that being said, I have one final question for each of you. We're going to do this newlywed game style. So I have Teo and Blake here. Like I said, first time with two guests at the same time. These guys are good friends. They're business partners. I hope that they're going to be able to answer some questions about each other. So, like I said, newlywed game style, which means that I ask one about the other and the other about the other, like that. So, Teo, what is Blake's most unique trait as a business partner?
Can I say two, or does it have to be one?
You can say two. Let's see if either of them is what he believes for himself.
Okay. The first one I would say is Blake has the biggest internal drive out of anyone I've ever met in my life. Blake is his own harshest critic, which it can inherently make it difficult at times, but it's also what makes him the best in the game, without a doubt. I mean, he will push himself to always want to learn and improve more than any external factors will. He never does it because I tell him the video's not where it needs to be. It's always because he just demands perfection of himself. And when it's not there, he gets really frustrated. And so it's incredible to see from an outside perspective that the second one, which I think is really unique as well, is he has this mindset that is, to his point, 49% creative. I would probably bump that up to closer to like the mid 70s. But he can context switch to the business mind, unlike anyone that I've ever seen before. So he's able to really fulfill all his duties and needs on the creative side. But then if I need him for something that's totally unrelated, I can grab him and we can really talk about things in a different light. And so I've noticed, I took that for granted at the beginning, and I noticed it's really a hard thing for most creatives to do. So,
Blake, would you say either of those are accurate?
Absolutely, would agree. Couldn't word it as nicely as Teo put it. So grateful for that. I'm gonna need the recording after we wrap the podcast,
Of
so I
course.
can listen to that again over and over again. No, but to answer the same question to Teo, the most profound trait is definitely his ability to just connect people. I think you asked him a little bit about his entrepreneurship background and how he stumbled into that, and it's just a core part of his personality and who he is as a human is just bringing people together. And I think bringing them and aligning them on a vision is the secondary part to that makes you a fantastic visionary CEO, a fantastic leader across any industry. And especially in the early days of a company that doesn't have much to offer to you besides a slight glimmer of hope of this opportunity that may or may not come to fruition. Any one of our early team members will tell you that Teo made them believe it. And it wasn't a false promise either. Obviously, we've come a long way since then. And the dream may have shifted over time, but ultimately, it's come true. And I think Teo's ability to, one, recognize that, but more importantly, make other people recognize that, believe it holistically is that core skill set. And that's from an internal perspective of employees and team, but also an external perspective of clients trusting us, of mentors wanting to mentor him, of mentees wanting to trust and learn from him, just across the board.
That's incredible. Teo, how do you feel about being gassed up by your buddy right now?
yeah, I always get goosebumps. I hate talking about myself and all the things that I do well and do poorly. But it's always great to hear that, and ultimately, and just encouraging to continue down the path.
That's exactly why I don't ask like what's the worst thing about your colleague, because then it's like, oh, I guess I agree. I guess like some people like that. Like you're like, Blake, what's Teo's most toxic trait? Go. Like
Teo actually has zero toxicity about him. I think Teo could answer that question about myself pretty easily. Being
whoa.
the 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 unfulfilled artists, or just creatives have their tendencies. But as a CEO, I think not having those tendencies and always just being calm, cool, collected is another part of why he's so fantastic at what he does. I deserve one temper tantrum per quarter.
And Teo, I'm gonna flip it. And if you say something hilarious, like he's such a bad artist or something, just like simple, or he never signs his emails, then I'm gonna turn this call off.
I don't even. Yeah,
I
that's it.
I can tell you the worst thing that I
Please.
tell him every 90 days is that he uses his MacBook Pro mailbox instead of our
Oh,
Google one, which is truly a tragedy. So it's an ongoing battle. I haven't won it yet. But he's really resisting on it.
we'll keep fighting the good fight, and that's all I have for you guys. So, Teo Mefalopulos, Blake, Takushi, thank you guys so very much for joining me on Talking Marketing. You guys were amazing. Um,
For having
question question for both of you: where can people find you online, and what do you have to plug?
I'm only on LinkedIn. You can find me there, Teodoro Mefalopulos, or you can look through Idea Peddler and go to employees and find me there.
Similarly, find me on LinkedIn, Blake Takushi, or preferably the LinkedIn for Creatives, which is Instagram at Blake Tak, T-A-K. Feel free to reach out. I know Taylor already gave this advice, but shoot the message. We love talking with young creatives, young marketers. Just don't chat GPT your first message to come up with something unique and creative.
It's got to be said. This is why I stop asking questions about AI, because I have to say the same thing every time. But I applied for a really big creative job recently, like as a content marketer, and the person hiring was like, "Here's the results of the all the job applications." She said like 80% of people filled out the application with ChatGPT, and I was like, "What is my competition?" Like I wrote something. It feels like it shouldn't be that hard to write something
Wow.
for a job app, but I get it. Some people struggle with that. Neither here nor there.
Wow.
But again, thank you guys very much. That'll be it for this episode of Talking Marketing. Please stick around to the end for announcements of upcoming AMA Boston events and opportunities to volunteer with us or join us on the show. And that's all we have. Thanks for listening. Hey guys, I'm back. That was really fun. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I encourage you to follow us on all the social media platforms at AMA Boston. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the events that we have coming up for you soon. January 26th, we have an online event, so any of you can attend. It's on Zoom. It's a free event. It is called Holistic Digital, a new approach to driving results with Corey Dawkin. I imagine it'll be very, very educational. I'm going to try to be there. Again, that's January 26th, 6 p.m. Eastern time, to be clear. And the next marketing mingle, AMA, we love to do our marketing mingles. It is February 21st. It is a 6 to 8 p.m. event at Howl at the Moon in Boston, which is a great bar, sort of nightclub, interesting little area. It's at 184 High Street. That is the February marketing mingle, and that comes to us from our friends at the Mass Professional Network. It's going to be a lot of fun. You get to meet us. You get to have a beverage or two, and make those connections. Make your marketing networking dreams happen. Find the Teo to your Blake, if you will. Anyways, that's what we got. Check out the AMA Boston job board for upcoming jobs if you want to do work in marketing. Follow us on, like I said, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. We're all over the place. We're always doing cool stuff. And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode of Talking Marketing and you want to hear more of our conversations with marketing professionals, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other major podcast platform of choice. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube as AMA Boston. And most importantly, if you'd like to support the work we do here, please consider becoming an AMA Boston member by heading over to amaboston.org/become-a-member. AMABoston.org is also the #1 place to find all of our work, including the AMA Boston blog, events calendar, job board, and a whole suite of ways to volunteer with our team. We get to keep doing this thanks to the support of listeners like you. Thank you.